Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this evening's Town Hall with the Premier of Nova Scotia, Tim Houston. My name is Kalela Perot, and I'll be your moderator. I know many of you are probably joining for the first time, so I'd like to give you a little rundown on what you can expect in terms of format from this Town Hall. Earlier this evening, several Nova Scotians received an invitation to join our conversation by the phone. Those of you who have chosen to participate have the opportunity to ask your questions to the Premier directly. If you are participating by the phone, we ask that you dial *3 so that you're added to the queue to ask your question. We're broadcasting this town hall live on the Nova Scotia Government Facebook and YouTube channels. And those of you who are viewing also have the opportunity to participate. All you have to do is email your questions to nstownhall@novascotia.ca. That just about covers it. We are going to have about 1 hour together this evening, so make sure you have your snacks, you're nice and comfortable, and we're going to do our best to answer as many questions as we can. For those of you who are participating by the phone, now is the time to hit *3 so that you can ask the Premier your questions. Before we get to the questions, Premier, would you like to get us started?
Sure. Thank you so much. Thanks. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. We'll be here taking some live questions. If you'd like to ask a question, please press *3. Press *3 to get in line to ask your question, and hopefully you have some questions to ask. So we're happy to take your questions tonight. Before we get started, I'd like to chat just a little bit about healthcare. Obviously, healthcare, main focus of our government. There's progress being made for sure. We know there's a lot of work to be done, but there is progress being made. I hosted recently our third healthcare summit, where I had healthcare leaders from across the province together in a room, and we just talked about healthcare and who's doing what and what more can be done. And I was very, very pleased to see and proud to see many of the healthcare leaders that were in the room who had just returned from national conferences, kind of had their shoulders back, and they're a little bit proud because as they were at their national conferences, people from across the country were commenting on what's happening in Nova Scotia, some of the initiatives that are being taken here in Nova Scotia and led by those leaders and the healthcare professionals across the province. And they told me, things like the pharmacy care clinics, the pharmacy clinics are working. They're providing care. They're providing access to people. The mobile clinics, they're working. The Patient Access to Care Act that we just passed, which talks about common sense credentialing, recognizing that, good enough for the UK, good enough for Nova Scotia, good enough for the United States, good enough for Nova Scotia, and recognizing certain countries whose training is at a sufficient level that, we can accept their prior experience and their training. And that's working as well. For nurses in particular, almost 13,000 applications from nurses from kind of pre-approved jurisdictions that said, hey, we want to be a nurse in Nova Scotia. The same thing is happening. Doctor applications are up. Other healthcare professional applications are up. So, look, we know there's big challenges in healthcare, but I want you to know that our focus is we're as focused as we ever were, and we'll continue to work hard to make sure you can get the care that you need when you need it and where you need it. So, happy to take some questions from you tonight. If you have a question, you want to get in the queue, just press *3, and happy to have a discussion for the next hour or so. So, thanks so much. We're ready if you have any questions.
Thank you so much, Premier. So we see some great questions coming in. First, we're going to go to Philip, and he has a question about the carbon tax. Philip, if you'd like to go ahead. Philip, are you there?
I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. I'm just wondering, how what happened with the carbon tax, because all of a sudden we've got 16 cents on a litre of gasoline, and I know the Premier doesn't want the carbon tax, but what is the alternative to it?
Hey, Philip. Thanks for the question. Of course, my thoughts on the carbon tax are well known. This is a tax that the federal government pushed down onto Nova Scotians. It's an unfair tax, I believe, an unnecessary tax. You mentioned the price of gasoline has gone up dramatically. It went up overnight, in June 30th into July 1st. The price of diesel also went up. Home heating oil gone up. Many Nova Scotians heat their homes with home heating oil. So, but when the price of gas goes up and the price of diesel goes up, the price of everything goes up. Every single product that needs to be moved to a market, moved to a store, needs to be trucked somewhere, it just went up. So the price you'll pay at the cash register for everything you buy, it just went up a little higher. So look, we agree with the federal government that our climate is changing. We agree with the federal government that there is a role for government to play in protecting the planet for future generations. We agree with both of those things. We just don't agree that a carbon tax was the way to do it. A carbon tax, is designed, like many taxes, is designed to modify behavior. So people would be familiar with, higher taxes on smokes, higher taxes on alcoholic beverages, designed to modify behavior to get people to smoke less or drink less. Carbon tax is also designed to modify behavior, and it's designed to modify behaviors that we just can't change here in Nova Scotia. We can't drive less. If our rural province, we need to drive to work. For many Nova Scotians, public transit, not an option. Taking your bike with your kids to hockey practice, pedaling your way to hockey practice or dance practice or something, not an option. You have to drive. So we can't drive less. We have to heat our homes. So the carbon tax is not, it won't have the desired outcome in this province. So the alternative, as you say, what can be done, we put forward a significant plan to the federal government. It is a plan that would have reduced greenhouse gas emissions without a tax. It was a plan designed to get at the look at our electrical generation system, add more, green the grid more, more wind, offshore wind. We have incredible offshore wind. We have incredible potential in the green hydrogen space. So there's lots of things that we could have done to really, to do our part to protect the planet without a carbon tax. The carbon tax is punitive on Nova Scotians. It's unfair and it's unnecessary. So, we've made that point to the federal government. We'll continue to make that point to the federal government. We'll continue to move forward on initiatives that can actually really and truly help the planet. We'll continue to have our focus there. But I appreciate you raising this important issue, Philip. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Premier. I know that's a topic that's on a lot of Nova Scotians' minds. Next, we're going to switch topics. We are going to Marion from Halifax. Marion has a question around senior supports. Marion, go ahead with your question.
Okay, thank you. How come you folks don't do much for seniors? I see you do all kinds for kids, for foreigners, and everything else. But, even our wages only go up less than $1.
Well, thank you.
And we got to live. Some of us have our own homes.
Yeah,
It would be nice if we got a little bit more on our pay to live. I mean, I see you get kids all kinds and, other people. But we seniors don't get much of anything.
Yeah, thank you, Marion. This is a really important issue for sure. I mean, taking care of our seniors, respecting our seniors, those who took care of us, those who built this province and this country, taking care of them, respecting them is certainly something that we have an obligation to do. I feel strongly on that. So, and I hear you on the on the questions about what can government specifically do. And I guess what I would say to you is, as Premier, there'll always be more that we want to do. I will always wish I could do more for Nova Scotians, but we certainly have to do what we can do. So specifically for seniors, we have a great minister for seniors and long-term care, Barbara Adams. We're very focused on building more long-term care beds across the province. By 2027, there'll be 3,500 new and replacement beds in the system. So replacement beds would be, going from multiple people staying in one room to single rooms. So 3,500 new and replacement beds. That's a significant investment. That will make sure that when our seniors, when and if they need long-term care, that it will be available to them. But that helps everyone. It'll reduce the wait list. It's actually good for our healthcare system because we know we have many people that are waiting at home for long-term care. We also have many people that are waiting in hospital beds for long-term care. So this is unacceptable. We're trying to catch up on, really what's been almost 8-10 years of no investment in long-term care. We're trying to catch up for that. So we're doing that. We did come out with the Seniors Care Grant. We've done 2 rounds of that now. That's an initiative that we put forward. Just a little bit of extra money for seniors to help them with things like groceries or even yard work or driveway work for those that have it. But the Seniors Care Grant is an initiative. The department has a number of programs to help seniors stay in their homes longer. The Capable program, that's a really innovative program. It pairs a contractor, with a nurse, with other healthcare professionals, with a senior, to focus on making renovations or modifications to a home to keep people in their homes. So that's a program that's there. The high dose flu shots, we're supporting the high dose flu shots. So look, I take your point that it's not enough. We always want to do more. But I would say that that's just a couple of things off the top, that initiatives that we've taken as a government, which are new, that previous governments haven't done for whatever reason, but we've done because we agree with you that our seniors deserve to be respected and supported. So thank you for raising that important issue.
Thank you, Premier. Now we are going to loop back to the carbon tax. We have Tony from Antigonish. Tony, if you'd like to go ahead with your question.
Hello.
Hi, Tony.
Are you there?
Yeah, we're here. Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah. I asked the question on the carbon tax.
Sure. You're live on the air now, Tony. You wanna hit me with it now?
Yes. The federal government should be looking after themselves instead of handing it to the provinces. You're our provincial leader, Justin Trudeau, is the federal leader. He shouldn't be allowed to hand stuff off that he needs money for to the provinces. That should be dealt with in a different format. And how are you going to correct it? Alberta is not paying it.
Yeah, the federal, it's a federal initiative. Every province, they pushed it down on every single province. We fought it for as hard as we could. We put forward our own plan. In Nova Scotia, there was a system here that the federal government had kind of allowed to be in place for a little while. It bought a bit of time, but that system could, they said they can't continue anymore. So that's why we had kind of a bigger increase, is because we hadn't, we were kind of catching up on what some other provinces had been hit with before. But look, we put forward a plan to the federal government that said we can do more for the planet if we work together on these initiatives. And these initiatives included things like, tidal power, more wind power, more renewable energy on the grid. We put that plan forward, and the federal government basically said, interesting plan, but we don't see a carbon tax in it, so we don't agree with it. They were determined to have a carbon tax, and that's what they're fixated on. That's what they've pushed. I feel very strongly that it's unnecessary. I feel very strongly that the carbon tax will not have the desired impact that the federal government wants it to have. The federal government wants it to reduce emissions and protect the planet. It won't, because of the nature of our province. We put forward a plan that would. So, look, we talked for a long time trying to talk some common sense, what I would consider common sense, in the federal government, and they didn't accept it, and here we are. And it's unfortunate, and it's punitive, and it's definitely unfair to Nova Scotians.
Thank you, Premier. Just a reminder to those who are joining us over the phone, if you would like to ask your question directly to the Premier, now is the time to press *3 to be added to the queue. We are now going to switch topics. We are moving to healthcare, and we have Julia on the line who has a question around improving the healthcare system. Julia, would you like to ask your question?
Hi there. Thank you, Premier, for taking my call. I'm just curious if you and the Minister of Health are working with independent Nova Scotia universities to accelerate the BSCN programs and improve the disconnect in working with NSHA. Currently, the needs of the students are not being met with critical hands-on learning and also working with our Nova Scotia Health Authority. And that system, to have a graduate who is prepared, confident, and skilled when they are finished their course. Currently, they are finishing with very little hands-on critical care, coming out with long-term preceptorships of mentoring with their employer. And I'm wondering if there's a way to tighten the belt with communication between those two entities.
Thank you, Julia. I hope so. It is something that's a focus of ours. Of course, our health minister, Minister Thompson, I've said many times, I believe we have the best health minister in the country. Minister Thompson is a registered nurse, so she understands the process, and she often tells me that the training that she had was dramatically different than what the training that nurses may be receiving today, and she certainly believes that the training she received was more practical in many ways, and I think that's what you're referring to. I do hear stories from young people who had gone through the nursing through university and not enough patient contact, let's say, and then when it gets time for patient contact, they're like, well, maybe I don't really like this, and they're 4 years into it. So I think that does a disservice to our students. I also think there's lots of opportunity to get nurses on the floor, interacting with patients, learning through different environments. So I will say that I have great respect for our universities and the effort that they put into preparing their students for the world. But I will say that we're working very hard with our universities to make sure they're looking at their programs to make sure that they're as practical and as appropriate time frame as possible. So I agree with you, Julia. I'm hopeful we can make some progress on that, but certainly offering training that's affordable and in the appropriate time frame and is real practical training is very valuable, and we're working with the universities on that.
Thank you, Premier. Next, we are going to move on to Harry from Sydney. Harry, are you on the line to ask the Premier your question?
Yes.
Hi, Harry. It's the Premier here. Thanks for calling in tonight.
How you doing?
I'm doing good, buddy. I'm ready for your question.
Okay. Who's in charge of administration to the ambulance services in the Maritime, in Nova Scotia? Here's why I asked that question.
Okay.
Recently, the nose came down, or the officials came down, or whatever, and addressed the ambulances drivers and told them they had to stay with their patients in the trucks if they had to until they had a room. They couldn't leave the hospital area to go take another call because there's already somebody in the ambulance. So, okay, that's not too bad. The better part of that was, now if they call and there's no ambulances available from 911 or 811, they send a fire truck. Now, I mean, a kid 9 years old would have more sense than that to send a $400,000 rig to deliver a man to a home. And that's what the excuses I got from the station. Now, does that sound logical to you?
Well, certainly, Harry, the issues and challenges, I guess, with the ambulance system are certainly well known to me. But I would say it would be a new one on me to think of a fire truck delivering a patient somewhere. So I don't know the circumstances of that one, and if that's something that you saw or heard about, because sometimes these kind of stories can certainly take a life of their own. But here's what I would say. We know that there are challenges with the EHS system, and we've been working hard. The Nova Scotia Health Authority works with Medivive and EHS, Emergency Health Systems Services, on the overall ambulance system. So a couple things that we're taking, and I will say this. There's a certain response time that's required. An ambulance should respond in a certain amount of time, and for the most of the time, that's met. It's not met all the time. We need to get to a place where it's met all the time, but it's a lot of times, most of the time, that is met. But there's room for improvement. So in terms of a couple things that I want to address that you mentioned. So you mentioned the paramedics having to stay with patients I think you're referring to at the emergency department. Well, that obviously ties up paramedics. When we want them available for a 911 call, when we want them not tied up. So we're looking at a couple initiatives there. I know they're looking at how to better have a handoff there to a proper trained healthcare professional, so the paramedic can be back out. We're also we've made big investments in a transport system, hiring drivers that can transport one patient from one place to another. So we may have a patient who's admitted to a hospital, but has to go to another hospital for a treatment of some form or a test or something. This happened to my brother when he was admitted at Dartmouth General, and he had to go to another hospital for cancer treatments. Well, that was done by, at that time, a paramedic. Well, nowadays, many times that would be done by somebody who's specifically hired for transport, to transport a patient back and forth. That one initiative, we initially hired 100 of them, and that freed up, 80% of the calls that were for transfers we're at that time with 100 done by a transport. So that meant that 80% of the time, an actual paramedic, advanced care paramedic, a paramedic was freed up to go respond to another call for 911. So that's a good thing. Those are the types of initiatives that we've been made. But we have made changes to the system that will allow paramedics to get on the job earlier once they complete their study. We can do that through a temporary license. It used to be that they're completed their study and they did the exam and to wait and wait and wait. We've addressed that to add them to the workforce sooner. But there are the training for paramedics. We're training more paramedics. We're providing funding to help them with their education. So here's what I would say is in the short and immediate term, we've taken steps for the transport drivers. We'll continue to focus on those offload issues to get paramedics back out in the field. In the medium to longer term, the more training of paramedics, so we have more paramedics helping people with their, the funding of their education. Those are kind of things there. There are still issues in the system with access to beds. That's why we have to build more long-term care. All these things are interrelated, but that would be impacting the offload issue. But there's work to be done. But look, the 911 system, it works. Nova Scotians should feel confident that when they call 911, somebody will get to them, and they should feel confident that when they get to the emergency department, they'll get good care. But there's lots of work to be done. But there is lots of work that is being done, and all of these things are incremental. They all have a positive impact. There's not one solution. There are many, many solutions, and there are lots of good people implementing good solutions. So the system is improving. The needle is moving. It's not fast enough for me. I'm an impatient person by nature. I wish it was faster, but we're continuing to be focused on it. But the EHS system you're raising a fair concern there, and I want you to know we accept that challenge and we're on it.
Thank you so much, Premier. We're getting a lot of really great questions asked this evening. Next, we are going to go to Joyce in Lower Nova Scotia. Joyce, I believe you had some comments for the Premier?
I do. Thank you very much for taking my call, Premier. It's not a question, it's just a comment. It's actually a bit of an accolade, I hope, to thank you, to express thanks for the support that you and your government have given to our family resource sector in this province. The additional support with concrete funding has enabled us to help families during these very challenging times with with basic needs and to get them through some rough spots. And I speak for myself on behalf of the Memory Lane Family Place in Lower Sackville, but I'm sure I would be endorsed by the rest of my colleagues in the province. So thank you for that support. It's so appreciated by the children and families.
Well, thank you, Joyce, for calling in and sharing that. It certainly means a lot. I mean, look, there's many issues in the province for sure, but this is a great province. There's a lot positive happening in this province. You know, we're growing. Good things are happening in the province. We have challenges, but you know, oftentimes I think you make a point to me that oftentimes I forget is sometimes it's okay to stop and pause and say there's some of the good things that are happening. The provincial budget is the province will spend $14 billion this year, $14 billion. Every single one of those dollars invested in Nova Scotians. And we try to hit the mark perfect every time with how we make those investments, and sometimes we don't get it just perfect, but sometimes we get it perfect, and many times we get it right. But I know every single one of those dollars, whether it's the family resource centers, women's resource centers, whether it's the investments we make in volunteer fire departments, education, roads, all these things, right? I would say that every time when we look at the budget and we look at what's possible. Our heart is in it. Our heart is doing what's best and what's possible for Nova Scotians. So, thank you, Joyce, for sharing that positive comment. It certainly means a lot. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Premier. Just a reminder to everybody on the phones to press *3 to be added to the queue with your questions. Next, we are going to go to Mary Rose, who also has a question about healthcare. Mary Rose, you can go ahead.
Hello.
Hi, Mary Rose. It's the Premier. How are you?
Yeah, just call me Mary.
Okay.
I'm not too bad, actually. There was two questions, actually. I want to know why my husband was moved out by the elevators and a patient brought out from the ICU and put into his room. And it really got annoyed, and my son Roger, who was up on 5th floor, visiting his girlfriend, he dealt with it, and the fact that I had to get my own son to do stuff so that it would be dealt with, it kind of made me angry. Actually, my son, David, took pictures of it, and we were really upset because there were people walking by and everything else. And it was very annoying. So I don't know whether you can do anything about that or not, but I don't think it's right that they should move a 75, that man's going to be 75 this year and in July, and I don't think they should have moved him out of the room the way they did.
Thanks, Mary, for sharing that. I'm sorry to hear that, and obviously the stress it caused your family. I'm really sorry to hear that. I'm not familiar with the specifics of that situation, but I guess what I would say is, and we can get somebody to circle back to you offline and have a more fulsome discussion about that. But we're working on fixing the system. We're working on fixing, the human resource issue to make sure we have appropriate staff. We're working on supporting those people that are working in the healthcare system. We have incredible people working in the healthcare system, and I know they're making tough decisions every day. So we know the challenges are there. We have a plan, the Action for Healthcare plan. We're implementing on that plan. And as I say, it's not quite there yet, but the needle is moving. But I'm really sorry to hear about the stress that this has obviously caused your family. Sounds like you got good support there, and your sons and Roger and David for sure. And I'm glad they're there to help. But I think what we do on that one, Mary, is maybe we'll just take that offline and see if we can get somebody to call you separately to talk about the specifics of it.
Thank you, Premier. Next, we are going to go to Anne Cromwell, who has a question about the carbon tax. Anne, you can go ahead.
Hi, Mr.
Hi, Anne.
Hello?
Hi, Anne. How are you?
I'm not too bad.
Good.
I think you probably
answered my question about the carbon tax, because another gentleman had answered. You had answered a lot of questions for him. But what I'd like to know, are they going to be putting the gas up more on top of the carbon tax that we're paying?
Thank you, Anne. So there's a couple parts of this. First, if I haven't made it clear, I think the carbon tax is unnecessary. I think the carbon tax is unfair to Nova Scotians, and I wish that the federal government didn't drop it on Nova Scotians. There's absolutely no need of it. But so to answer your question, we have the UARB in this province. The UARB sets the price of gas weekly. You'll see the price of gas changes on Thursdays. They set on Fridays. They set the price of gas. So it will fluctuate as the market price of gasoline changes. So will gas go up or down? That will depend, in many respects on the market price. But what is inflating the price of gas, what's pushing the price of gas up beyond what it should be, is two different carbon taxes. We have the one in there now. We have the clean, plus we have the clean fuel producer regulations. This is on top of the carbon tax. So let's just call it what it is. It's two carbon taxes that the federal government has pushed on it. Only the federal government has the power to stop those. If the federal government would just stop those, then the price of gas would drop, by 17 to 20 cents right away. Once we get rid of those two carbon taxes, the Atlantic premiers, we're all aligned on. It's not just me that thinks this carbon tax is unfair and unnecessary. All the Atlantic premiers are aligned on that same page, including Premier Furrier from Newfoundland, who's a Liberal. So we do have a website, fightthefederalhike.ca. You can send a letter to your federal government member of parliament. We have some, obviously some Liberal members of parliament here in Nova Scotia. You can send them a letter. You can make your feelings known on the carbon tax. But the federal government has pushed this on us, and it's their will and their way, and we got to pay it. It's not fair, but it's what they're making us do. So. Will the price of gas go up in addition? It'll depend, on the market price, but they have their two carbon taxes baked into that price already, and it could go down if they would take those off. But I appreciate you asking about it.
Thank you so much, Premier. I'm happy to say we have a lot of really great questions coming in. It's even more coming. We are going to shift gears for a moment and go to a question that came in over email. So next we're going to go to Tyler, and his question is there any work or plans to bring nuclear power to Nova Scotia? Thank you, Tyler. Premier?
Hi, Tyler. Thank you for this this important question. So when we look at the mix of our grid, how we generate energy in this province, we use a lot of coal to generate energy. We still do. We're trying to get off coal, and we're making some strides on that. But we have to look at what else can we use to generate electricity. So people talk about solar, they talk about wind, they talk about tidal, hydropower. All these things are part of the mix, and absolutely, I think nuclear should be explored as well. I think that in this province, we should be looking very seriously at when we look at the makeup of our grid. I think a balanced grid would include, some natural gas, probably some wind, some solar, some hydro, and in the fullness of time, probably some nuclear. I think it's something that should be explored for sure. So I appreciate you raising that, Tyler, tonight.
Thank you, Premier. Next, we have Audrey, and Audrey has a question around Avon River. Audrey, go ahead.
I'm just curious as to why the gates are still closed on the Avon River, and which keeping the Pissaquit Lake flooded, when the federal government had said, I think it was 2021, that the gates were to be fully opened, and then John Lohr used the fire issue to flood the lake again, and has extended again the need for the lake to be full based on what he said an emergency order was required because water resources were needed for fire protection. As you know, we've had rain for like 25 days straight pretty much. I don't think we need that lake full anymore, and I'm thinking it is just John Lohr protecting his constituents at the cost of the fisheries. So curious as to what your comments are on that.
Yeah, thanks so much, and I certainly support Minister Lohr's decision on this 100%. Really, the reality is the best time to fill the lake and have the lake available for, as a water source for fighting fires, the best time to fill the lake is before you need it. Obviously, the worst time to fill the lake would be after you need it and a town burnt down the day before. And there was, you don't have to go too far back in the history of the town of Windsor when there was a significant fire in town. And they did draw on that lake as a source of water. And had they not had that source of lake, many locals tell me, had they not had that source of water from that lake, then, they could have lost much more of the town. And that's not that long ago. So the best time to prepare for a fire is before a fire. We had some devastating fires in this province, like just absolutely devastating, and we lost a lot of homes. The scars on our province from those recent fires are very deep. The emotional scars, the financial scars, very, very deep. As we look to being prepared as a province, this is one part of the preparation for that part of the province. So I know it's probably not what you're going to want to hear, but certainly as a government, we intend to keep it closed, especially during the wildfire season, to make sure that if we need it, it is there. That's it. If we need it, we want to make sure it's there. And the wildfire season will go into the fall. Federal Minister Blair has warned the country to be prepared and to expect a significant wildfire season, and we've certainly been seeing that across our country and definitely in our province here. So in terms of the federal order that had been in place, certainly Minister Lohr had conversations with the federal government. And my understanding of those conversations is that the federal government was sympathetic and understood the reasoning behind his order, given that it was being done in the interest of public safety. It's being done in the interest of public safety. We will always do everything we can to prepare, and preparation for wildfires for us includes having that lake there, so that we tend to keep it closed and have that lake there.
Thank you, Premier. And just a reminder, there are still a few minutes to get your questions in. So if you are on the phone, dial *3 to get in the queue. Next, we're going to Nancy Pichtel, who is a former healthcare worker. She has a question around private healthcare. Premier? Nancy, go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, Nancy. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
You're live now.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. I just wanted to know if you're aware that I am a senior citizen, a very active senior citizen. I did hurt myself, and I went to the doctor, went to physio, went to an osteopath. I did everything I'm supposed to do. I've been begging with them to send me for an MRI because I feel there is something wrong. Finally, my nurse practitioner did send the rec for an MRI. She called me today telling me the radiologist said, no, there's no need for her to have an MRI. Now, he's not in my legs and my pain and waking me up at night. I can hardly move. I just want to know if you're aware of that, because it almost sounds like they're trying to get you to go to the private sector. I am a senior citizen. I can't afford, but if I could, I would. But I can't. I just want to know if you're aware that they have the right to tell me, a taxpayer in this province, that I cannot have my MRI, which I feel I need.
Thank you, Nancy, for raising this issue. I'm not familiar with the specifics, and I I'm really loath to second guess a healthcare professional on their decision on what's medically appropriate. So I'll put that out there. But what I would say is, we know Nova Scotians need to be able to access the healthcare system. Our focus is on working to make sure that there is a healthcare system there that they can access when they need it. Across the country, our Medicare system is in trouble. In many ways, it's in trouble, but I believe it can be saved. I believe in the public system. I believe that people should be able to access it. So I would be. I certainly do not support anyone trying to push somebody out of the public system and forcing them to pay for something. I would certainly never support that. That's not how our country was built, and it's certainly not what our province is about. So I don't know the specifics of the decision making on what medical procedures are necessary for certain patient care. And I appreciate that you're the one who's experiencing the pain for sure. So you have a good, and plus you're a healthcare professional, so you're speaking from a position of authority on the subject. I get that. So I don't know the specifics of what would be driving that decision, but I will assure you 100%. I believe this, and this province believes in the public system, and we would not stand for 1 second for somebody intentionally pushing somebody out of the public system to make them pay for in a private system. That's not what we're about. So I would certainly hope that that's not the case here. And I would just say that our Action for Health plan, that's our plan to make sure we fix the healthcare system, make sure everyone can have access to healthcare in this province. That plan, it's totally focused on strengthening the public healthcare system. That's what we're about in this province. So, and it's working, but it's taking time. But I'm really sorry to hear about your experience there, and that's something I can talk to the team. But I know I would not stand for people pushing people to a private system.
Thank you, Premier. Next, we're going to bring it back to the carbon tax. We have David on the phone. David, would you like to go ahead?
Yeah.
Hi, David. Hi, David. You're live with the Premier. Thanks for joining us.
Not a problem. Can you hear me good?
Yeah, I got you perfect.
Okay. First of all, great job. You're doing a damn good job. If you want my opinion, it's just tough times for everybody, and we all got to pull together. I mean, during COVID, everybody loved one another. Now, when taxes go up and things need to be done, everybody's fighting and complaining. Just got to learn to all get together.
I'm with you on that. I certainly agree with you on that. Thank you for the kind words. But I mean, absolutely. Go ahead, David. The floor is yours. I don't know if we lost. I don't know if we lost David, but no, you raise a good point, David. Just on there are certain times when we stand together. There's absolutely times when we can have healthy debates and probably disagree on things, but there's times when we need to unite as Nova Scotians for the betterment of the province. And that is always around issues of how do we make the healthcare system better. That is always around issues of affordability, and standing up for what matters to Nova Scotians. So sorry we lost David there, but maybe you can try to join back in.
So it looks like we have about 15 minutes left. We are going to switch topics here for a little bit, and we're going to go to Jane, who has a question around Lyme disease. Jane, go ahead.
Good evening.
Hi, Jane.
Hello?
Hi, Jane. You're live with the Premier.
Good evening, Premier Houston. I guess I have two questions and perhaps an invitation. Number one, is there an action plan to deal with the issue of tick-borne illness in this province, which is affecting so many people every year? Number 2, if there is an action plan, where might I find the details of it? And number 3, I would very much like to extend an invitation to yourself and anybody else in your administration who might like to speak about this topic further at some point at a later time.
Thank you, Jane. This is like such an incredibly important topic, you know, tick-borne illness and Lyme disease specifically. We know there are many parts of the province where, you know, where it's a bigger issue, but it's certainly an issue across the entire province. In Pictou County, where I'm from, there's a lot of ticks, and there's a lot of ticks carrying Lyme, so it's a big issue. A couple of things. So I guess one of the things that I'm talking to the department folks about is, you know, just kind of having that, pulling people together, exactly as you say, to talk about, you know, diagnosis, treatment for Lyme disease specifically. I do think we have an opportunity in this province to really bring some experts and some thinkers together on this topic. There's a lot of work to be done. I know my friend Brenda Sterling Goodwin is a great resource to a lot of people, and certainly somebody I have great respect for on her thoughts and understanding of what can be done and what's possible. We have taken some steps, you know, as a government. We expanded the pharmacy's ability to help Nova Scotians. You can bring a tick to a pharmacy and they can help with treatment. You know, I know there's some debate on whether that's a significant dosage and that type of stuff, but it's, you know, we've started with that, let's say, expanded the pharmacy's ability to deal with it. We're looking at a model to expand treatment and diagnosis through the Nova Scotia Health Authority, talking to physicians. I do believe that, you know, if you show up at an emergency department or you show up at in one of the access points with a tick, you should see consistent treatment. You know, it should be the same protocols that are in place, and I think there's still some work to do on that. So I do appreciate you raising this. We have had some folks in to talk to our caucus about it, and to your point, maybe it's time to do that again. What I would say is I appreciate you flagging this tonight, and I appreciate the offer, and we'll go back and talk to the team and see what's possible there. But I really appreciate you calling in tonight, Jane.
Thank you, Premier. Next, we have Alan from Sheet Harbor, who has a couple of questions about that area, around road maintenance and cellular towers. Alan, go ahead.
Yes, hello. Mr. Premier, thank you for taking the time to do this and my invitation. I appreciate it. Can you hear me?
Yep, Alan, I have you just fine.
Good. I am new to this province. It is a lovely place. I know that there are issues with every place. I lived most of my life in Ontario. I chose to come here because it was the type of place I wanted to spend the next 15, 20 years, whatever I have left. And there are a lot of great things here. I wanted to say that. From what I have heard from people who live here and so on, you know, the current administration seems to be doing a great job. That's good. I just have two things that I have picked up since I've been here the last year that really stand out for me as thorns, and they are road maintenance, upkeep, and cell phone signal. I know that we live in a large province with few people, so that creates its own issues, tax base and so on. However, I'd like to understand what the plan is for more road maintenance, and also to upgrade the cell phone towers. I feel that's really a safety issue. I will be quiet now and listen to your response. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Alan, for making your home in Nova Scotia. Welcome. We're happy you're here. If you moved here in the past 12 months, you'd be one of 40,000 new Nova Scotians. If you moved here in the past 18 months, I guess, you'd be one of 50,000 new Nova Scotians. Our province is growing at an incredible rate for sure. People are seeing what Nova Scotians already knew. This is a great province really can offer everything anyone wants. So thank you for moving here and making your life here. You raised two important points for sure. I mean, I live in a rural area. And so self-service is something that, you know, on my drive on any given day, I drop calls at some point in the day for sure. And they say that all politics is local, and there's nothing more local than the road you drive every day. So roads and self-service are two topics that certainly we spend a lot of time focusing on in government. So on the roads, if I take the roads first. We'll spend $500 million this year on roads maintenance. $500 million. That's the budget for this year. It's a very, very significant budget. It's higher than it was last year, and higher than the year before, and next year will probably be higher again, and not just because of the inflation, but because of the focus on allocating more money to it. So we'll continue to invest in roads. I think $14 million of that is for rural roads under the Rural Impact Mitigation Fund, and that's a fund that we continue to increase as well. So there's work to be done for sure, and there's always, you know, decisions. You know, we have a lot of bridges constantly being reviewed. We have a lot of decisions to make in the prioritization of which roads based on the need and as you said, the safety issue and stuff. So the budget is significant, but it's significant for a reason. As I said, same reason I talk about why the carbon tax won't be effective, because we have to drive, because we're a rural province. That's the same reason that we have to invest so much in maintaining our roads. So I want you to know that you know, we'll continue to invest in roads. There is a 5-year capital plan that's out there. We can flip you that, or you can find that online that talks about, you know, the plan for 5 years, and then there's always additional roads that are done on top of the 5-year plan. So there is a plan for that. Cell service, it's an issue. There's been a big focus in the province on internet, making internet available across the province, and great strides have been there. I don't know specifically how your internet service is at home, but for many Nova Scotians, it's got dramatically better in the last couple of years for sure. We also have a program for those that aren't on the schedule for getting, you know, proper high-speed internet. We have another offering to them where we'll help them get satellite internet through Starlink or others, right? But I say that because as we make progress on the internet issue, it also shines a light on the cell service issues. So you have internet issues and you have cell issues, and many times they go hand in hand, but the focus has been on the internet, I guess a little bit to the detriment of the cell service. So now as technology changes and you can make cell phone calls over the internet, Wi-Fi calling, all these types of things, there are more alternatives and technological possibilities. So what I would say that Minister Corcoran-Greek and her department, also working with Build Nova Scotia, the cell service issue it's top of mind right now, and I expect we'll see dramatic improvements in the cell service coverage across this province in the next 12 to 14 months. But it's an issue today, and so are roads. And I appreciate you raising both of those, Alan. But happy to have you here in Nova Scotia. And thanks for sticking it out with us while we get through these.
Thank you so much, Premier. A lot of good information there. I know a lot of Nova Scotians are interested in both of those topics. Next, we are going to go to Caroline, who has a question about the carbon tax. Caroline, go ahead.
Hello.
Hi, Caroline.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine. You're live with the Premier.
I'm wondering about the carbon tax tonight and groceries going up.
Yeah, it's here now. the federal government wouldn't have it any other way. They want you to pay this carbon tax. They've made that very clear. They will send a rebate check, and they want you to believe and think that the rebate check is higher than what you'll pay in carbon tax, and they'll actually try to convince you that you can make some money off the carbon tax. But I don't believe that carbon tax is a moneymaker, but it's not just me. The parliamentary budget officer did a report and said that the carbon tax will cost Nova Scotians money. Even after the rebate, you're going to be out of pocket. We worked very hard to convince and show the federal government that the carbon tax was not necessary, that they could work with us on other planet preserving initiatives, but they decided that they wanted the carbon tax. I'm with you. I don't agree with it. I don't like it, and I think it's bad for Nova Scotians. But they push it here, and they push it here at the, probably the worst possible time when inflation is high, and the cost of everything was already going up. They made them even more expensive, and I don't get it. But if you also don't get it, I encourage you to write to your federal member of parliament and tell them how it's affecting you. Tell them how it's making life less affordable for you. Tell them the pressure it's putting on your family budget. But I still hope that the federal government will see the issues this is causing for Nova Scotians and at least hit pause and have an adult discussion about it. But in the meantime, you can help send that message to them too by writing to your member of parliament. But I know that the affordability issues that Nova Scotians are facing. We'll do what we can as a provincial government, through seniors care grant, through the home heating rebate program, through making childcare more affordable. Through these initiatives, we'll try to help Nova Scotians, but we're trying to help them at a time that the federal government is pushing on a completely unnecessary tax, and that's really sad. But I appreciate you sticking on the line tonight and raising that issue with me.
Thank you, Premier. I'm sad to say that our hour together has come to an end. I want to thank everybody who joined us and is watching, asked their questions, and shared their ideas. The conversation does not have to end here. You can still send your questions to nstownhall@novascotia.ca. Premier, would you like to finish things off for us?
Yeah, thanks so much. Thanks everyone for joining us. Thank you to those who asked thoughtful questions. I apologize to those who had a question that we didn't quite get to. It's really important to me that I'm always listening to Nova Scotians. I learn from each one of these discussions, each one of these interactions. I'm out around the communities, touring around the province. If you see me somewhere, stop. Each one of those conversations makes an impression on me. It makes me think about different issues and challenges and opportunities. So thank you for sticking around tonight. Thank you for being so kind when we see each other in person. But we'll continue. We've done a few of these, and we'll continue to do them. But this was really helpful to me, and I hope it was informative for you. So enjoy the rest of the evening, everyone. Take care.